This is a review of Survivor Season 47, Episode 2, Epic Boss Girl Move is the title of this episode. Richie, thanks so much for joining us always. We are going to recap the entire episode. We're going to rename the episode because it needs a new name, if you ask me. We're going to give our stock up, stock down, as well as who's going home next, question for Jeff or a castaway. All that and more. I am here in my hoodie in Los Angeles. You are in a tank top in Arizona. How does it feel to see someone wear a hoodie right now?
Bro, I mean, it's crazy. It was so nice last week, and then all of a sudden this weekend, bro, it was 113 yesterday. It's almost October.
Yeah, man, that's unreal. And yeah, it was cool for a second there for you guys, and now it's not. Well, Survivor's heating up as well. Good transition. We got episode 2, and we get Phoenix mentioned right away. I don't know if you remember this, but
that's crazy.
We open up with Rome, who is a Phoenix resident. We see him on the beach, talking about how it looked like a Phoenix sunrise, and we get that kind of end of his idol hunt journey, but it plays out with some pretty funny drama. He decides, well, we do see that what we were questioning last week of like, well, what happened? Where do we leave off? He kind of went for the box. It was too dark at night. It's funny that like, yeah, that would be a thing that you can't read it at night. Like we're like, oh yeah, I guess you wouldn't be able to see a thing, which also is kind of crazy that you could get back to a spot and find a box and pull it up and keep moving. Pretty insane. But he does. And then he decides that he wants to tell Teeny. Do you like the idea of this? You find an advantage and you should tell at least one person.
I don't, man. I still don't. I mean, I think time after time we say to these people, why are you telling the people that you have an idol? Because it never works out for them. That person turns on them, and then they get them out with their idol.
Yeah. Ultimately, you have to keep it a secret, and which is easier said than done. And yeah, it goes wrong for Rome right away. He tells Teeny, and Teeny's a little like surprised by it, which is kind of funny because they're like, Teeny says like, my first thought was like, oh crap, rather than like, oh man, this is awesome, I'm being brought in. And Teeny's first thought was also, I got to tell Kashan, which not only tells Kashan but brings Kashan to the box, where then Rome stumbles up upon them. This was like my stomach was like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever seen that where like somebody's has found it and it hit it somewhere, told one person, and that person told somebody else, and then they walk in on them, showing them where it's at. That was insane.
Yeah, dude. And like it seemed like it wasn't that far after one another because this all happens like in the morning where and then suddenly like these three are hooked, and like I don't know if Teeny's like lies or whatever. Like I felt like we should bring him in because Teeny really was like trying to out Rome, wasn't really trying to create an alliance. But brings Kashan in, and they all kind of see it together. Rome decides to go with the one tribal immunity idol, which I don't know. It's easy to see to be a couch quarterback here. What do you think you would have gone for the one? We saw it. We saw last week. Gabe went for the second level.
Yeah, I think you got to go for at least for the second level. I think one is just like it's just not enough.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And if you have people that are with you and know that you're on the hunt for it, maybe they can help, and or maybe they can hurt. But he ends up just kind of going with one, which, whatever, but gives him a little bit of power. We go over to the blue tribe where TK is kind of starting to strategize his alliances. He brings in Tiana after being a little sketched out with Gabe. And Tiana seems to be like, at this point in the episode, we should say, seems to be on board with the fact that like, she thought it was an all boys alliance, and TK is like, might not be what you think. Pretty.
I thought that was a smart play by him to go to her and try to get her involved as well too.
Yeah,
the strongest girl out of the three of those on that tribe, so it was a good move by him for sure.
Yeah, and it seemed to be like in a good spot, and like TK was right to be hesitant about Gabe because he had caught Gabe looking for an idol, and And Gabe, like we hear in confessionals that he's like, I don't know that I fully buy this alliance and I want to be a part of it, which I think is a theme of this episode is that people are aligning with people that they don't want to. And like it's like they talked about it on the podcast a little bit, the balance of like social and gameplay. Like if I
Yeah.
don't like this person, but it's smart to work with them. And I feel like people always end up just going emotionally though with it. Unless like what we saw in Kagiyan where it was just like,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
would say
they
90, 95% of the time for sure.
yeah, like people do end
And
up
I feel
just
like it
getting
almost never
emotional.
works out for you either, too, though, going emotional. I get that, like the just like being around them 24/7, you don't know if you want to work with that person, but I mean, what? It's 20 something days. I think you can put up with somebody for 20 something days that if it's going to win you $1 million.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, I don't know. We of course we never know what it's like to be on that beach, but it's one of those
Hmm.
things where it seems obvious. Like the game should be the main focus of like what you're doing and what you're focused on. Wild, but the other side, we get to the Yellow Tribe. We see a little more of the Andy fallout of gosh, this Yellow Tribe is had a really good episode because so much went down there. But we get
Hmm.
the start where they're all just kind of patronizing Andy and
That's
like
exactly what I wrote down, where they're patronizing this man.
patronizing,
He's opening up a
patronizing.
coconut, and they're just like, "Go, Andy! Hey, good
Yeah,
job."
yeah. I saw the clip too of Tyson, friend of the show, we'll
Hmm.
say. Tyson, he doesn't know it, but he's a friend of the show. Saying that like you don't want to be the one they're cheering for.
Hmm.
Like to go back to
Yeah.
last week, they were cheering for John because John is a podcaster who lives
Hmm.
in LA and like would never lift a machete if he ever, and ever. And so that's why they were
Hmm.
cheering for John. And Andy just couldn't pick up on that socially. We get a funny line from Annika calling, is talking, bringing up her dating apps and all the guys she's seen and saying that Andy gives toxic, clingy boyfriend. It might actually be worse than that. I think that's maybe a nice way to look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Um, because yeah, it just we they throwing around words like babysitting and like keeping an eye on Andy, and then Andy's gone, and it's like, oh no, we
Well, they
lost
are. I
Andy.
mean, Sam literally sits back and babysits him while the girls go off, and they kind of start to look for the idol or the clue a little bit at least. And Sam's job is just to sit there with Andy the entire time. But I feel like he makes a pretty good move and uses it to his advantage a little bit and builds some trust with Andy,
Yeah,
which I feel like is a smart play. Because
yeah,
say you continue to win, you make it to the merge, you want somebody on, you want numbers, you want people on your side. That's a number right there.
yeah, yeah. Sam, I mean, had a great episode, but he gets up to
Hmm.
go to the bathroom, and then we hear Andy use the word spiral again, and he's like, I'm starting to get freaked out. And this leads to Andy going out and being like, "All right, I'm gonna maybe look around for an advantage." He finds it, which amazing, dude. You got it. Like
Yeah.
you found an advantage. Like you're on Survivor, you found an advantage, and he decides to put it back. We saw Carla do this a few seasons ago where she put it back and then she immediately
Hmm.
went back though. It wasn't like hours
Yeah.
later. Andy puts the Beware Advantage back, which just shows the level of paranoia this guy is going through. It's like
He says with the intent to come back too, like he was going
yeah.
to come back later.
Yeah. And I do think there is some sort of power in knowing like, oh, I know where it is. So then if I do
Hmm.
go back and it's gone, I know at least someone has it. But then someone has it and it's not you. And that's a problem.
Hmm.
Not sure what he was thinking there. Yeah, so Andy puts it back. We get back to the Red Tribe right after this, and this is the where the Rome show begins.
Yeah.
What do you make of our pal Rome here?
I think a
Because
big, I think a big like theme of this episode is that first couple of days, just don't be annoying. Do
yeah,
whatever you can to not be annoying. You don't want to be super quiet to where like you're being suspicious, but you can't be over the top. Just talk. I mean, this man was saying he could be a rapper, a football player.
the Michael
It was,
Jackson moves. The Michael
jeez,
Jackson
oh my
moves.
gosh, bro,
At one
just
point,
cringe. It was cringe.
it was cringe, and it all culminates like the moment, which is funny that like he actually continued his confidence after this, but he talks about, oh, like it's time to build a fire. Like, did you guys build fires before this? I did every single day. My record is 16 seconds or whatever he says, and we kind of all get this kind of great justice where
Mm-hmm.
Kashanis and everyone's sitting back. We get Asia talking about like, dude, this guy is just doesn't stop talking. Like, no
Mm-hmm.
one seems to be happy with Rome. And then Kashan actually steps up and makes a fire, which is a point in our fantasy league, or a couple points
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. He is the one that ends up being the one making fire after Rome tries and tries and tries and can't get it going.
Mm-hmm.
Kashan steps up and gets it right away. Which, gosh, I would feel,
And you wonder like in real time how quick that was. Like
yeah,
I wonder if it really was that quick or that's just how they produced it. But either way, it made for great TV.
yeah. And a funny like note that they talked about on the podcast is that he brought up the podcast and he said, "I hope I'm the next On Fire co-host." And they're all aware of it, which is kind of funny in its lore now.
Oh,
They're like,
when they panned to Asia too,
yep,
and
they knew
she's just like,
exactly who to pan to in that one. Um,
that was awesome.
Asia, who's on the other most popular Survivor podcast, who would be a shoe-in if she even gets to the merge to probably be on. Like, but of course he's podcasted before, so he could probably do
Mm,
it. And Jeff had said in the podcast that they debated leaving that in or not, but he was like, it ultimately shows Rome's character. This we see they
hmm
had a supercut of all of Rome's confident behavior and how it was rubbing off, and it was just like, let's leave that in there too, because that is
Yeah.
bold on day 3 to be like, not say like I'm gonna win, which we maybe see that in the preview, but to be like, I'm gonna be the co-host of On Fire, which
hmm
I think now is also becoming something that like people are thinking about. Like, oh, maybe that's
mm
something I could be a part of,
Yeah.
especially if you're a super fan. Um, we get more of that with Rome later, but we get back to the Yellow Tribe after this, and Andy's gone when Sam comes back, so Sam starts freaking out. Sam
hmm
does something really interesting in this episode because like he takes each person in his tribe and like gives them their own moment with him to where he
Yeah.
has like all these kind of alliances and trusts with absolutely everyone,
hmm
which seems great and is great, but can also come falling down if you lie to just one of
Yeah. hmm
them.
It can come
And
down quick too. We've
yeah,
seen that
and
happen
so
before for sure.
when he realizes Andy's gone, him and Annika go out and looking for an advantage. He finds the beware
hmm
advantage, and then that leads them to the knots, or leads them to the box, and then the knots, which, yeah, crazy. But then he says, I'm gonna have to come back for this. And then he goes and he grabs Sierra. So now he brings
hmm
Sierra into the fold, and Sierra's like, well, Annika is probably gonna tell Rachel in a great edit. They cut right to Annika telling Rachel. Sam found it, by the way.
Yeah.
And then Sam has the presence of mind to go, okay, well then I need to go tell Rachel now too and get ahead of it.
I thought that was his best play for sure. He did.
Yeah.
He seemed to do it very quick. Like didn't waste too much time. And I mean, it didn't seem like Rachel like was suspicious at all that he like took too much time to tell her, wasn't going to tell her. So I thought that was a great job by him.
Yeah. And he tells her, yeah, she totally holds her cards well. And then it cuts back to Andy, and Andy is like, he's like, you know what? It's only been a couple hours, is what he says. Maybe I'll go and I'll get the advantage. And it's gone. And that's a pretty good moment too of like there's a couple good moments of realization in this episode of like, oh, that's awkward. The Rome walking up on the other two, this one, and then there's one more later in the episode that I thought was really good. But then Andy comes to Sam, and then Sam gets another moment to knock it out of the park because Andy's like,
Yeah.
dude, I think like someone has it. And Sam says that he was in musical theater, which I don't think I would have guessed.
Yeah.
And he puts on his acting. He's like,
Hey.
no way. Wow, Sam, that was amazing. Even just in this little
Yeah.
block, like was able to accomplish so much and get so far
hmm
ahead, and maybe no spoilers, but get his stock up, if you will.
Yeah.
Really great here. What else? Did you make anything else to Sam here?
I mean, I just think the way he acted was perfect. It wasn't too much, wasn't too little. Like he already knew where it was. I mean, yeah, it was a great job. And to think that quick on your feet too, it has to be very tough, especially when you're under that kind of stress and thinking about saying the right thing, saying the wrong thing. It was a great job.
Yeah. We hop back to the Blue Tribe, where TK seems to be like, I don't. He seemed to be maybe. Well, I guess we see it with Gabe too, but TK is making a lot of social moves here, which I always kind of get
hmm
weary. I guess you kind of have to before, but like trying to make big social plays and calling out who you're going to vote out next when you're not even going to immunity yet is always
Mm-hmm.
whatever shaky. But he tries to bring in Gabe, and I believe this is where he, presents the Sue idea of like let's
Yeah.
vote out Sue, and like Gabe puts on a face of like yeah, sure, sure, sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Gabe immediately leaves and goes and talks to Caroline. Is that her name? That's what I wrote. Yeah,
Yeah.
Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
He immediately goes and talks to Caroline, reveals like we see from her in a confessional that she's like, I don't really know. This like something's not clicking to make
Mm-hmm.
me trust him. And then he reveals his idol, which this is a maybe good idol reveal, because it earns her trust, or at least
Yeah.
slightly. I don't know. What do you make? Do you think that's a good enough to gain a vote, gain loyalty?
Yeah, I don't. I feel like it's still too early to tell, like, if that is
Yeah,
a good or bad move. But
yeah.
I feel like if I was in his position, I don't think I would, and I would just go with the flow for the time. I mean, you have the idol if you feel like you need it. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, but ultimately we kind of get that alliance, and it seems like that tribe is 3-on-3
hmm
with Gabe, Sue, and Caroline. After this, we get another kind of social moment of don't be annoying,
yeah,
like you said,
hmm
of time for nap time on the beach. Except, were they ready to nap, or I feel like they all agreed like let's all like get some shut eye.
yeah. That was the part that I didn't understand fully. I was like, because Sue got super mad because TK was talking while they were trying to nap, but at the same time, like, I mean, you could just move a couple feet away.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and Sue was pretty smart to like stir it up with Tiana to be like, "Can you believe this
hmm
guy?
That was a
Like
great move.
we're
Yeah.
just trying to chill." Like I think those are always like that's a little bit like what we said last week about saying something like, oh, they're playing hard. Like, it's another
hmm
one like, "Can you believe?"
Whoever says it is safe.
Right, right, right. Yeah, can you believe that? Like it's just subtle enough of a comment to
Yeah.
kind of activate someone. But then we go back to Yellow. Sam and Sierra go and they open the box. He ends up taking the one tribal immunity, the little guy,
hmm
and he kind of reveals right here that he would maybe want to play it for Andy. And that's a bit of a shock. But then when he says, I
hmm
don't want to be one guy against three girls, I'm like, yeah, I get it.
I
Or
get
or
that
at
for
least
sure, but at
save
the
save
same time,
save Andy for one more, take out one girl if
yeah,
and then I don't know. What do you make?
at the same time, like you were saying, I feel like it's still too early to talk about that. You haven't even lost yet. Like, don't tell her that and give her more opportunity to go and talk to Annika and Rachel about it. I think you got to keep that to yourself. Think about it, put it in the back of your head, and just go with the flow until it's time to actually start playing.
Yeah. Yeah, but even to float that out there, like I'm sure that caused Sierra to have a few like cracks or a
hmm
few whatever. But when someone's holding an idol like that, they kind of have the power in the decision making. It feels like.
Yeah.
That's
hmm
not necessarily the case, but that must be what it feels like
Because you don't want to
sometimes.
go against them and then they use the idol and vote you out.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, you want to
hmm
be on the side of the idol wherever it is. But it was a ton happened all before we got to the challenge.
Yeah.
And I mean, so much idol uncovering and social play and all that stuff, only for us to get to an amazing Survivor challenge. Like I think
hmm Classic.
this is the fastball that Survivor has
Yeah.
by land, by air, by sea. Like this is the full package here, bag of rice from, out on the water, bringing it all the way in,
hmm
shoving it through the wall. That thing looked heavy.
Even before the challenge, though, I think that was one of the biggest like surprises towards the beginning of the season when they come in and they see that Andy's still there. And
Yeah,
I kind of wish Jeff had prodded a little bit more and asked them some questions like, I mean, look at these like visible expressions I'm seeing. Like, what do you guys make of this, or something like that?
that's a good point. Yeah, I feel like that always does happen, especially when it is a
hmm
like, whoa, were you guys not expecting that? Is this a
Yeah.
shock? And like, all right, let's get to it, Jeff. Like, yeah, you're right. That I think, and maybe that did happen, and no one said
hmm
anything, and so they just cut it out. But yeah, that was a pretty good shocking moment as they walk up with Andy still there. Andy like waves too, like hello, in a way that like he even knows,
Yeah.
like, dude, I shouldn't be here, and I know you all know it. Um, But yeah, great challenge all the way to the
Hmm.
end. At one
We
point,
get we get like the only part of Saul that we see the entire episode in the challenge too. Him just carrying the rice on his one shoulder.
yeah,
That's literally, I think, the only thing they show of him the whole episode.
he also was stabbing at the bag too at one point.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
him and Andy both. I don't know why they let Andy hold the knife, man. I mean, I hate to say it, but
I was thinking
I
that
saw a
too.
good tweet that was like, so we should
Yeah,
investigate this guy for some sort of murder because the way it was,
something.
Kyle was the only like reasonable person that just went
Hmm.
straight across. Saul was also kind of stabbing a bit, and they had their hands
Yeah.
out there, and Jeff's like, "Watch your hands." It's like, dude, he said that because they're gonna lose a finger. And a little, I feel like the knife in the rice bag. That's got to be a little callback to the epic Jeff with the bag of rice. Gosh, just one of the
Hmm.
best moments. And then also with the rice, you have to mention. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is. I know.
Yep.
Actually, I think I said it out loud before it started happening. But I'm like, dude, that's a lot of rice. Like, why don't they like grab some of that? And yeah, we see Rachel start to stuff it into her back pocket, which is a
Hmm.
smart move. Like this is a bag.
Yeah.
It's not a bag of sand, which would have probably been the smarter choice and less wasteful. But the idea of scooping it in her pocket, we'll get to how that plays out.
Yeah.
That's just a funny moment. And then we get to this kind of crazy ring game, which I heard the guy
Hmm.
Jay on the podcast say. He's like, I don't know why every bar in America doesn't try to invest in this game now because this game looks like one that would be so fun to play, like in a backyard or
Yeah.
something
Oh
where you're
yeah.
racing, turning that ring. Like it looks so frustrating and so good. Some hype moments at the end. Sam yelling, "Who's ready to eat some fish?" after fishing gear
Hmm.
on the line. Classic Survivors. Challenge number 2. Red team also wins in a bit of a close one. And then, yeah, before sending everyone out, Jeff takes a moment, stops, says, "Hey, Rachel, did you put rice in your pocket?" And she says, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, empty your pockets." He's like, "That's not cool," or whatever. What did you make of this? Because I think this is maybe
So
dividing
this
people.
actually, yeah, this actually comes to my. This is my question for Jeff, and I want to know if he actually saw her
My
or if
question
they
as
told
well.
him.
We are on the same page with that.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows that someone in his ear told him, "Hey, dude,
Yeah, because I mean, he's so busy. Like, how did he see? There's no way.
yeah,
Which I
three
feel
try."
like if he had caught her fairly, I think she should have had to put it back. I think if he didn't catch it fairly, though, I think she should have got to keep it.
That's a good take. I like
Yeah.
that because but then it really is like it's Jeff is the one. It's not like Survivor. It's not everyone else. But yeah, it had to have been like a camera op, like being like,
Hmm.
hey, contestant 4 is putting rice in her pocket. Contestant 4 rice in pocket, and they might have even decided in the back to be like whatever because he says that like he was talking about it on the podcast, and it was just like what I'm just not going to let that fly. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I would have loved the conversation, or if there was a producer that was like, "No, let her do it. Let her get away with it." I understand that it
Yeah.
sets a precedent that I remember I was watching Fans vs Favorites, and there was a challenge where they had to throw fruit over a wall, and you could bat it down. Right? It was like some challenge like that. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
if a banana comes over, why don't you sneak that in your pocket? Like or like a mango. It's like, oh shoot, let me pocket that one. I might not throw that one over. I don't know if you can sneak it, if you can
Yeah, I think so.
in the same way that like if an immunity clue was underneath a sit out bench, and that used to be a
Hmm.
thing too, and maybe they'll bring that back one day. Um, yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit like, nah, it makes sense. You got to earn it. That's what Jeff always says, but he makes her empty her pockets. Funny meme online too of him holding a
Hmm.
gun pointed, empty your
Yeah,
pockets. Oh, unbelievable,
that
dude.
was
Twitter was
great.
great. Twitter was great after Survivor. And then we get a very crucial moment for the losing tribe, Blue,
Hmm.
because Jeff points out a lot of smiles, and Tiana's like, it's fake, and it's a lot going down. And then TK makes the comment about we're not going to lose, and like it's not cool with me. I think Charlie made a really good point on the podcast about this is that Survivor Tribes it's not sports. You're not going back to a locker room to reevaluate. Like
Hmm.
you are going to vote someone out. For you to be critical of people, especially this early, that can be dangerous, especially if you're not
For
holding any
sure.
power of idols or
Yeah.
whatnot. Um,
And sure, have that thought process and everything. Get that out in your confessional. Don't say it in front of the entire game.
Yeah.
Not
And
even just your tribe. You said it in front of everybody too.
yeah, and for TK to be like, I'm a competitive person, all right? Like I like competing. Every person who is on Survivor is a
Hmm.
competitive person. Like no one is there
Yeah.
going like yeah, and if you're lose, like I mean we know people and we know like athletes who like, yeah, they turn to being pissed off and that can maybe
Hmm.
help them, but this is a social game. This is like yeah, I don't know. It's not sports, and I thought that was an interesting take. And maybe those are things that can't translate for some athletes who come in and are just like, oh, okay, we'll just go back, make adjustments, and get back out there. It's like, well, only if we like you, and only if it makes sense to keep you around will we all do that.
Hmm.
So yeah, so blue has to go to tribal. They're all scrambling. It seems to be that we could get a 3-3 tie.
Yeah.
And Tiana seems to be maybe the difference maker. At one
Hmm.
point, like she's like TK goes as far as to apologize. I would say it was an aggressive apology. I don't know that it was. I mean, it was sincere probably, and that he was trying to save his
Yeah.
butt. But it was just still like, I don't want you going around talking about me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I went too far, sure, but like, don't. And it's like, dude, that's not helpful either. And then we hear Tiana really talk about like, yeah, do I want to socially like? I don't socially want to
Hmm.
be with this person, but it might be good for my game. And yeah,
She says that before she came in, she said she wouldn't play with her emotions and she would play with her brain.
yeah, yeah, and we ultimately we see Sue and Caroline and Gabe are pretty strong with one another,
Hmm.
and they're trying to bring Tiana in. We get to tribal, and one big thing that stood out to me was, and this kind of made me realize that like, dude, TK just really is not here. He was like, has anyone talked to Sue here? Has anyone had any interaction with Sue?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, yeah. Yeah, like people have talked with
Just because you
Sue.
haven't doesn't mean everybody else hasn't.
Yeah, and he said that he tried and maybe he did, but yeah, a lot of people have talked. We saw Sue play pretty hard this episode. Like she
Hmm.
was trying
Yeah.
to push the charge harder than Caroline was, and maybe even harder than Gabe was, of being
Hmm.
mad at like, dude, no, we're not having this guy stick around. And yeah, TK was just totally not aware of that. TK was, because he was the one sitting in the water bringing people in. Kyle clearly is a guy who's not there to play socially, which, you know, I love him for that, but that's only going to get you so far, especially if you don't have
Hmm.
a big personality to latch yourself to, like a TK.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So then we get to the vote, or is there anything else in tribal that stood out to you?
No, I mean, yeah, before, I guess after the vote,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Gabe playing his idol,
yeah.
which
So
I
we
for sure thought he was going to play it for Sue,
right.
but he
So
plays it for himself, which I was shocked by.
yeah, here's the thing about so we get to the votes and it seems as though it could be a 3-3 tie. I feel like that
Hmm.
was ultimately what was the feeling. We see Tiana get up to the booth and say, my instincts are never wrong. My instincts are never wrong. My instincts are never wrong. And of course, we don't know what that means yet because we don't see the vote. And then right before the votes are read, Gabe stands up and it's like, oh, okay. Well, if it's a 3-3 tie and he puts it on Sue here, TK will go home. And that'll be a
Yeah.
pretty baller move.
Hmm.
He plays the idol. He walks over and then he walks over and we're waiting for him to say Sue. And he just kind of like put it on
Yeah.
me. He's like, oh, I'm safe tonight. And yeah, it's like, oh no, I don't think any votes are going toward Gabe. There was no indication of that.
Yeah.
We get the votes. It's
But he,
four.
he, he was the guy that said in his pregame whatever that if he got an idol, he was going to play it. So
That's true.
he
And
got the idol, he played it.
yeah, that's true. And he's my fan favorite pick. And I hope, that can last a while. I mean, we'll see. I don't know quite if he
Yeah.
is going to fit that yet. But he plays the idol. The votes end up going 4 to TK, 2 to Sue. We get a crazy reaction from Kyle where he just says
Hmm.
no. Like, dude, that no was like
Like, do it again, do it again.
that no was a like there was a lot in that no.
that
Like,
that was an election denier. No.
dude, that was a no. It was like, oh, it was a perfect delivery. And with the Gabe Idol play, I was literally like, oh man, like I'm an advocate of you got to punish people if they play an idol wrong. But what
Yeah.
they explained on the podcast was if it was a 3-3 tie, And then it was a tie
I get,
again.
yeah.
He would not
I
have to
get
pick
why
a
he played
rock.
it for himself. Yeah.
He would not have to pick a rock. And so, because there
hmm
was a lot of talk of rocks here. And when we were going into tribal, I saw the time and I was like, oh, this is going to be a long tribal. This could be, we might get some rocks here tonight in Survivor. And it didn't happen. But when it's put that way, I'm like, oh, okay, then that's not a
hmm
terrible decision. Because then
Yeah.
I would not want to go to rocks. If I went home, I think I'm a person that I might get bought. If I'm like, I might say I'm going to rocks, but I don't know that I would.
I'm not going home on no rocks, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I might switch last second, but act like no, I'm not going. I'll do a rock. I
Yeah.
don't care. And then last second, be like, yeah, wherever keeps me safe. Um, that's the play. TK goes home. TK was your pick for fan
Fan
favorite.
favorite. Yeah.
What did you make of TK? Just played a little too hard, too fast.
Yeah, I mean, did not get that he was going to have that type of social game, and that
Yeah,
definitely that was his downfall for sure.
yeah,
I thought he was going to lean more into the whole talking about how he was sick growing up and everything, and he never once talked about that. I think I
yeah,
could have got bought in him maybe some more sympathy votes, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough too because when you're like one of these early ones, it's really hard for you to try to come back and get back in the game.
hmm
But yeah, he seemed to be good energy, but it was just too big and too much. And yeah, like him just being so out of touch with the Sue thing to me was like, yeah, dude, you couldn't win this game if you can't see that Sue was,
Yeah.
you know, again, yeah, it's just so vocal. And at one point, like Tiana was like, well, maybe we should send Sue home because she's the weakest. She can't hold her. But you and I both have seen Sue is holding her own. Like that, I don't know, doing great things.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say so.
but that's a farewell to TK. Let's go into stock up, stock down after that episode. Whose stock is up? Which castaway stock is up, and who is down? We might be pretty similar here. We'll see.
I think so. Stock up, I went with Sam,
Yeah,
MVP of the episode, kind of dominated it,
yeah,
got an idol,
yeah.
made some good alliances, it seems like.
Yeah, brought like I think bringing people along is so clutch that he brought
hmm
like Annika along for when he found it, and then he brought Sierra
hmm
along to unlock it, and he brought in Rachel to, just tell her, and then made Andy feel good. Like again, yeah, flawless play from Sam.
Yeah.
Like he's the fan favorite one now. That's like,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, because he seems super likable. He had so many confessionals. I don't like the way he's sitting though. That branch sitting they got to change that, dude. Like I don't know. That just feels so awkward. Him just like leaning back, like
I don't
yeah,
know. I kind of like it.
no,
He's relaxed. He's out there, bro.
yeah, but he's like talking about how stressed out he is, and I'm like, I don't know. Let's put this guy somewhere else. But maybe he's like tall, and that's like I don't know. There's got to be some thought into that. Yeah, I had that as well. I'd Sam stock up. Who do you got stock down?
I went with Kyle.
Yeah,
His number one ally went out. I mean, I think maybe he can rekindle things with Tiana, and then if they can get one of the other, maybe Sue and Caroline to go against Gabe, maybe that could
yeah,
work for him. But he's got a lot of work to do for sure.
yeah. That's Kyle's one. That's like, yeah. He even talked about it. He's like, yeah, surviving that's easy. The social play though, like, I mean, it's almost
hmm
he was almost like, I don't know that I want to play that way, and yeah, that doesn't look good for you, especially now Sue has to go back to tribal knowing that Kyle wrote her name down,
hmm
and yeah, that's just a really tough place to be. You got to just hope your tribe keeps winning and hope for a tribe swap. I have Kyle stock down as well. We're matched up perfect. That's
Yeah,
amazing. All right, question for Jeff. We both want to know, how did that
yeah.
Rice thing play out? Because yeah, it had to be. It couldn't have been him. Couldn't have been him. And I,
hmm
I like I like your thought. I like the dude. If no one catches you, if
Yeah.
Jeff can't catch you, then you should be able to get away with it.
And maybe he did too. Maybe he really does just have eyes everywhere. Because I mean, he does work these challenges a lot. He's used to looking at three different areas and looking at what people are doing.
Yeah.
So maybe he did see it on her own. But it would be nice. It'd be cool to know for sure.
Yeah, true. And he might have like saw something and then asked or something,
hmm
because yeah, she did it a couple times, I want to say, and her pockets were pretty full. But also dude, that
Oh,
rice was soaked in salt water, and like, yeah, I don't even know if that was good rice to have
I don't.
anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how that
Yeah.
works, but
Yeah, no, that's my question. That's pretty quick. Let's rename the episode. I'm gonna go first here because my winner said this one, and My instincts are never wrong. I think that should be the name of the episode. I think
I like it.
Tiana made a big choice on her way to being the sole survivor. Like I said at the beginning, shout out Tiana. How are you going to rename the episode? What are you going with?
Mine is what Annika says at the beginning of the episode. It's toxic, clingy boyfriend.
Yeah. Toxic clingy
That
boyfriend.
was
Yeah.
that was a great line, and she said it so quick, and the way she said it,
Yeah.
it was great.
It's so funny. Yeah, I feel like that's just that's perfect. In dating, I feel like so many people were like, oh yeah, I know exactly what she's talking about. She's fun. That's a good character. Well, nice. Who do we think is going home next week? Who do you got?
This is tough, man. For a second I was gonna go with Rome. I feel like he could do something stupid where he wouldn't play his idol because he's just so cocky.
Yeah,
But I think I'm gonna go with Saul.
Saul, huh?
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot from him. I feel like maybe Red loses. It's going to even things up. Rome's going to play his idol, and it'll end up the votes will fall on Saul.
Yeah. Because like Teeny seems likable over there. Kishan seems likable over there. I like the pick.
They
for
seem to have a
Saul.
thing with Asia and who the other girl.
Yeah.
Genevieve. Yeah.
Genevieve, who got 0 confessionals.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
one
not a
last
lot from
episode.
her.
Yeah. Might be one of those quiet ones that's in the final 2. I can see that in Genevieve. I think I'm worried about Gabe in the next episode in the same way you were saying that like maybe Tiana could flip it towards Gabe.
Yeah.
And I'm also worried about this yellow tribe going to tribal and how that could all play out. We saw in the preview episode that the preview to the next episode that Sierra and Sam get accused of being in a couple in the next episode. So things are going to get stirred up over there, and I think people are going to get clued into how, Sam is Mr. Likable. I could see him playing it on Andy, thinking he's smart. The girls all grouping together, going, "Hey, Sam's going to play it on Andy," because Sierra did not seem to love that. I could see it being Sam, so I'm going to go with Sam, which also feels crazy, kind of like the way you were saying Rome. I could see it all blowing up for Sam because Survivor, anything could happen.
I feel like if that happens, I think Sierra will go with him, and I think they'll vote out Annika if that's the case.
Annika, if it's yellow, it's Annika.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going Sam. You're going Saul.
And I'm going Saul. Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. Last, we said it'd be Gabe or Rome today.
Yeah.
Not quite. Didn't happen. Yeah, dude. What else? That's it. I think that's the episode.
I mean, me and you got a pretty big matchup this week in fantasy football.
Yeah. Some house cleaning.
Both 2-1.
Both 2-1. My team, I got a lot of Niners on my team that are pretty injured. Yeah, to shift over to fantasy football. Yeah, I got Deebo Samuel and George Kittle who were, out and doubtful. It says I'm a 52% chance. I got 5 points on you right now. Yeah, do we want to make a wager? How do we want to do this? I bet someone at work a breakfast burrito. At work, and I'm doing it again this weekend after I lost last week.
Maybe we bet a shot when we go to Vegas.
You heard it here first, folks. We bet a shot when we go to Vegas, and you don't have to get the other person back. That's how it's like. You buy me a shot. I'm not buying you one in 30 minutes from now. That's what we'll do. All right, sweet, dude. Well, sounds good. And yeah, man, more Survivor continues to roll on. This is a good cast. This is a good season. I feel good about.
I have high hopes for sure.
High hopes. The Idol play, and now an Idol's going to be back out there for Blue. So will Gabe hit the ground running and get back out there? Looking for it. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, my fan favorite, he grabs another one. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week for Survivor Episode 3.